Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast, your guide to optimizing your life one health tip at a time. This podcast is designed to entertain and inform, not to provide medical or health advice. Always consult your doctor when it comes to your personal health or before you make any changes to your diet, exercise, or lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Coach Kyle.
And I'm Dr. K. Thank you guys for joining us today as we discuss Ozempic, Semaglutide, Mounjaro. And I know we've already had an episode about this, but today we're going to talk about how to do it properly. Not just how to dose the medication, but really how to live your lifestyle in the proper way.
Yeah, so this is really important. And the reason we're having this episode is Toxic Roots, my coaching company, is unveiling a health coaching program for people who are considering going on Ozempic and people who are going on, are already on it itself, and not just Ozempic, but also Semaglutide, Retatrutide, all the non-name brands as well. But let's talk about why you want to work with someone besides just getting this medication prescribed. I mean, Doctor, you have a history with prescribing this medication. You've actually worked with patients before. You mind describing kind of like what you see a lot, the ups and downs?
Yep, absolutely. So I've prescribed a lot of Semaglutide, Ozempic for patients. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. A lot of patients do really well with it. And, I'd say about 70% of the people, once you hit their proper dose, they lose the weight. About 30%, they just cannot seem to lose the weight. And here's really where it comes down to all of this. When I talk to patients, I give them I go over, how to take the medication properly. I give them the basics. You're going to eat high protein. You're going to avoid sugar. You're going to lock in no more than 2,000, 2,500 calories a day. You're going to try and work out to your best. And I pretty much leave it at that because my job is to get you on the medication. Lifestyle management is where you need someone like Coach Kyle to come in and say, hey, it's not just whatever nonsense Dr. K just said. Here is the true breakdown. Here's what you're going to do every day of the week. Here's how you're going to work out. Here's how you're going to eat. Because of this, the 30% that don't lose the weight, as soon as they start eating high protein, low carb, and actually working out properly, they start losing the weight. And of the 70%, unfortunately, a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in the news as well, they can't get off the Ozempic or the Mounjaro because as soon as they do, they start regaining the weight almost immediately. And the reason for that is they never actually adjusted their lifestyle. They use the medication as an appetite suppressant to lose the weight. And then as soon as they come off it, they just start eating again.
Yeah. And that goes down to metabolic adaptation. This is kind of the hallmark issue with how this medication is used, right? So it makes you not hungry. And if you just don't eat when you're not hungry, what'll happen is your metabolic rate will slow down incrementally. So yes, you'll probably lose some weight. But what happens is as that metabolic rate slows down, you approach closer to plateauing. And you get to this weight loss where you can't break through. Not only that, but studies have shown anywhere from 40 to 60% of the weight you lose is actually muscle. And that's what contributes to a lot of this metabolic reduction. So the thing is, once you start taking this, all the papers and all the headlines are saying you have to be on it for life. You have to keep increasing your dose, and eventually it's not going to be as effective because your sensors are going to be overwhelmed and all that. It's just not true. You have to do it appropriately. And appropriately doesn't necessarily mean exactly how the pharmaceutical companies want you to dose it. The pharmaceutical companies are not your doctors. Your doctor is your doctor, and your doctor should be listening to you and working with you. And that's the first hallmark of the coaching program that I'm opening up is how to talk to your doctor and how to ask for dosage that's right for your body. And so what does this look like? So Dr. K, when people go on Semaglutide, usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, the pharmaceutical companies recommend like a 4-week step-up period. So you go 4 weeks on one dose, you double it, 4 weeks, double it, until you get to the max dose within 12 to 16 weeks. Is that kind of what you see?
Correct. Yep, that's exactly it. Now, good doctors, myself hopefully being one of them, what I do is I encourage patients to stretch out each level as much as possible. I'm not going to increase your dose until you stop losing weight because once you go up, you can't go back down.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to go back down. And this is part of the dosing. So like he said, we want to stretch the cycle. So as part of the program, you'll get comprehensive information on dosing and how to cycle, basically. And the main thought here is, hey, we want to step it up at the rate at which we can get you positive weight loss without risking losing muscle. And then when we get to about half the max dose, roughly, we want to stay there until you hit a reasonable plateau. And then we'll consider something called cyclical dosing. So we'll cycle you back down. And yes, you're not going to lose weight. And you might even gain weight on that cycle down. But on that cycle down, what's going to happen? This is part of the coaching. This is how we coach you through it. There's going to be a focus on this high protein and this weightlifting, certain specific movements that increase your muscle mass. And when you add calories back into the equation after you've been in such a low calorie place for a while, that anabolic signal in your body to build muscle is there. So what we want to do is we want to cycle it up. You lose some weight, then we cycle it down. With the right lifestyle techniques, we can actually have you gain 5-10 pounds of muscle during the cycle down. Then when you go back on and cycle back up, the weight you lose is easier to get off and you don't have those plateaus.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, yeah, you definitely need someone to walk you through this, because the average person, if they try to do this on their own, they start gaining the weight and they don't know why. They're going to freak out and go back to their doctor and say, hey, put me back on it. I can't get off. I keep gaining weight.
Yep. And there's a way to do it. So, I mean, I've tested this program on myself, and I have successfully used it for 3 or 4 cycles where I've gone up to about the half dose, and then I've cycled all the way off and spent months off it, while the whole time improving my body composition, increasing muscle mass, and reducing fat. So, I mean, I've shown that with myself, this program works. But cyclical dosing is just the start. It's just the very start. I mean, we'll cover things like, how to adequately hydrate yourself. So this is one of the big struggles on a medication like a GLP-1 agonist, because when you're not hungry, first of all, you get a lot of your water through food intake. And if you're eating less food, you'll just naturally get less water. On top of that, you don't have that kind of drive to drink water. It's just gone. Being on it myself, I mean, I've seen it. Have you seen any of your clients or patients just struggling to remember to drink water?
Oh, yeah. I think part of it does have some, because it's an appetite suppressant, it suppresses the thirst as well. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is key. And then this program will go not only how much you should be hydrating, but hydration strategies, when to mix in your sodium, your potassium, your electrolytes, when to dose those electrolytes, and even things like changing the structure of your protein intake. So for example, something like collagen protein is high in amino acids that are what we call osmolytes. And osmolytes are things that help your body retain and keep the water where it needs to be. So something like collagen instead of whey protein will actually help you stay more hydrated during your time on a medication like this. So timing on your protein, timing on your electrolytes, how much water, these are all things that we'll cover and we'll walk you through holding your hand during this program. And it goes further than that. Dr. K mentioned protein and weightlifting. These are major things, but you can't just assume that if you go exercise, you're going to retain your muscle. For example, if you do something like Orange Theory Fitness and you go and do a bunch of cardio while you're on Ozempic, yes, you might lose weight faster, but what you're going to do is you're going to shift that equation away from fat and towards muscle loss. Your body wants to pare down that muscle in order to be more metabolically efficient, meaning using less calories. And you want to use more calories so you can burn fat, not muscle. So we'll cover things like doing the right movements for your body. So your body, your situation, you might have an injury and we can work around that. We can even do mobility exercises to make sure that you're getting the right signal to keep and retain muscle while you're on it. And then while you're on your off cycles, we'll grow and build muscle to keep that metabolic rate optimal. Dr. K, have you prescribed Retatrutide at all? That's Mounjaro, right? Yeah. Do you find people have more success with Semaglutide or Ozempic or Mounjaro and Retatrutide?
I mean, Mounjaro definitely works better, and you actually know the mechanism better than I do of why. It's like a later stage something or other, but it works a lot better. It's fortunately a lot more expensive. You can get compounded Ozempic, Semaglutide for a couple $100 a month. Whereas Mounjaro, if your insurance isn't covered, you're looking at $1,500.
Yeah. Mounjaro is very expensive. And this is kind of the difference between a generation 1 and a generation 2 GLP-1 agonist. So semaglutide is a GLP-1 agonist, meaning it's hitting one receptor and doing one thing. Retatrutide or Mounjaro is a dual agonist, meaning it's hitting 2 different receptors and doing 2 different things. in terms of appetite suppression and weight loss. And I'm just keeping this as simple as possible. In the program, we'll have in-depth education where you learn exactly what these things do and why you want them and what you don't want and what you do. But there's even a third generation coming out called Retatrutide. And this is hitting 3 different receptors. And the trials are very impressive. It's actually blown tirzepatide and Mounjaro out of the water in terms of effectiveness for weight loss, and has been shown to even have a muscle-sparing effect when compared to the other 2. So all of these will be discussed in this program, and in terms of how you approach it will also be, you'll be coached through. So you can ask your doctor for one of these medications, and we'll coach you through which one might be most appropriate. There are things you also have to take into consideration between the 2. For example, Semaglutide has a half-life of 7 days. Tirzepatide or Mounjaro has a half-life of 5 days. So some people, what they'll see, and I've seen this in clients as well, is that they have amazing weight loss on the tirzepatide off the beginning for the short term. But if you keep their dose away from the max dose, they start to have reduced weight loss. And this is because on the weekends, when they're in their last 2 days, they're getting hungry again. They're eating more food. It's because of that half-life. So we might consider strategies such as starting on semaglutide and then transitioning to tirzepatide if we need to make that switch. So balancing how you use it is another key part of this coaching program. What medications, when, and what to talk to your doctor specifically about switching and dosage. So we cover that. We also cover, I touched on the protein and weightlifting a bit, but I think we need to go a little bit more in depth because I don't think people realize the power and the impact of protein. And I might have mentioned this before on our podcast, but protein intake, a decently high protein intake has shown to increase muscle mass without weightlifting. Just eating enough protein will increase your muscle mass. So think about that in a calorie deficit situation. If you're low on calories and you're losing weight, if you get enough protein, it's going to be sparing that muscle mass. And so this is not just, hey, eat more protein, because this is a difficult conversation. Because remember, you're not hungry. And protein is sending a huge satiety signal when you eat it. You ever sit down and eat 12 ounces of chicken breast? You're stuffed. You're absolutely stuffed. So strategies will be included, and we'll talk through it for each individual person, how to adequately hit your protein intake without feeling sick or nauseous all the time or feeling like you're just stuffed. And so that'll also be part of the program. Dr. K, anything you see in terms of side effects with semaglutide or tirzepatide?
I mean, so yeah, there's like true side effects, which are, nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea. You can get pancreatitis, allergic reactions, a couple other things. So some of those things we really care about, like allergic reactions, pancreatitis, stuff like that. You have to stop the meds. You have to whole different plan. The nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, I think that's actually mismanagement of the medication compared to lifestyle diet. As in, it's not the doctor mismanaging, it's the patient mismanaging what they're doing while on it.
Yes, and that's totally correct. So this is a great case study. The clients go through my program and they've basically done it the way that the program is structured, and they've had 0 to just very minor side effects, this nausea, this diarrhea, this kind of stuff. They've had this same family members have gone through not gone through the program and gotten a prescription outside, and they have had all kinds of side effects, crazy nausea affecting their day-to-day life. So this is really, like Dr. K said, about lifestyle management. What things you choose to eat, how you choose to eat them, timing, things like that, as well as it goes back to the dosing strategy. So, the pens that you get, if you get brand name, Mounjaro or Ozempic, they're preloaded with doses. But if you work with a compounding pharmacy, you can customize the dose to just a unit or 2 up and down. And this allows you to really, really take control of the dosage to manage the side effects while still getting the benefits. So that's another key aim in this coaching program, is to make sure you can go on these medications, get the results you want while not feeling like crap. That's a big deal. So, I think I've covered the gist of it. In the program, we'll have lots of education information. We'll work one-on-one with you, either myself or one of my health coaches. And this is a thing that I believe this tool, these GLP-1 agonists, are going to radically change how we approach weight loss And I'm not scared of pharmaceutical advancements. I just think they need to be used intelligently. And if you're not working with someone along with your doctor, because your doctor's not there to hold your hand through this, through every little part of it. Your doctor's very busy. He has to see a lot of patients. He's got a lot of people to take care of. But having someone there to help him through it who knows how to navigate it is actually a major advantage in terms of going through a treatment like this. And it can allow you to know that you have the power to go off this medication. It's not something you're stuck on for life.
That's exactly.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Dr. K, anything else we should mention?
That's all I've got.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll put a link in this episode. So if you go in there, there'll be a link in there, and that'll link you to kind of a sign up page where you can get more information, schedule a consult with me. We're hoping to launch this well before this podcast actually releases. So if you're hearing this now, the program will have already been up and running. And I'm really excited to help people out and see if we can't get to their goal body weights in a healthy and efficient manner.
Perfect. You guys heard it here first. Call Coach Kyle for any help you need with your Semaglutide or Mounjaro.
There we go. So I'm Coach Kyle. You can find me on Instagram at ToxinFreeKyle.
And I'm Dr. K, or the OsteoDoc on Instagram. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peak Performance Podcast, your #1 resource for today's top health hacks and facts. You can follow us on Instagram at the Peak Performance Pod or on X at Peak Perform Pod. You can also check out our website and weekly blogs at peakperformancepodcast.online. Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We put out a new podcast every Thursday. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purposes of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, carefully read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the product. Information found or received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or should you have any healthcare questions, please promptly call or see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Coach Kyle, Dr. K, and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of the information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein.